Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. Oh, maybe that scene didn't switch yet. Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons, and this is another episode of Late Night Geo. So, Late Night Geo, I've been doing them every Friday nights now, and that's going to be a reoccurring thing for those of you who don't know. Usually, I bring on a random guest and talk about their geospatial experience, projects, or just interesting topics they want to discuss regarding their opinions and such about the industry, community, etc. And maybe they have interesting educational resources or just some tips and tricks to kind of get around maps, geography, or just geospatial analysis. However, this time I have Courtney Mueller. She did our last St. Louis Geo Spotlight with us last month. She's going to do it again next month, but we're not here to talk about Geo Spotlight because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves from that episode. She's just we'll see how things go, discuss some of her experiences with using maps, charts, and with her job and experiences on how important studying demographics in St. Louis and how geospatial impacts her life to an extent. So, Courtney, do you want to say hi? How's it going? Go from there.
Hello. Yes, this will be interesting because I have absolutely zero geospatial experience to talk about. So this should
Good.
be
You might have
interesting. Yeah.
it'll be interesting explaining some of the topics I bring up within the on the side here, so we can go from there. But how about
Lots of experience using these products? So there you go.
Well, how are you involved with geospatial right now?
Um, well, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and we're the home of NGA West and the new NGA campus, which is being built. And so we're kind of in the middle of trying to really build up and shore up our geospatial industry. And I kind of got involved in it because I'm involved in economic development and economic development communications and kind of regional marketing and business to business recruitment. And it was something that we knew that we wanted to really work on and try to better understand the industry and the companies and the talent and what kind of things people are interested in. And kind of got into it just as a kind of like a fangirl kind of way, I guess. Like I just showed up at Geoint, had no clue, no clue what was going on. Had never been to a geospatial conference, never, other than just the normal. I knew a little bit from working in public transit, a little bit about like API keys and kind of like very basic kind of stuff. But in terms of actually understanding what goes into the industry, no clue. And really just kind of learned on the fly because St. Louis is that interested in trying to figure it out. And so now I know a little bit more about it to basically just be a little bit dangerous and talk about it like I know something. So that's what we do tonight.
Met you at the Geoint Symposium in 2019, and talk to me about what your first impressions were at the Geoint Symposium.
Well, one is I think that like because we were home of NGA, you think of it very much mission driven. So I thought of it as being very much limited to intelligence and defense mission. And the commercial aspect of it and how it branches out in terms of whether it's sort of the gathering of the data or the applying of the data, like had no real clue about that. And so to me, that's the most interesting part is that there's so many applications for what was otherwise, developed as the sort of intelligence, type of infrastructure, but now has all these commercial applications and really like humanistic applications, especially as we've become more globalized and more interconnected, more interdependent. To me, that's the really exciting part. And that's sort of what I was amazed about when I was at Geoint. It was like, oh God, I had no idea all the applications, that you kind of go into and that you think about. But now I feel like we're even since 2019, because of the pandemic, even more applications, even more stronger understanding of how to like take advantage of this data and how to really track things like, whether it's global pandemics, vaccine distribution, online warehousing, just so much. It's crazy. So I think that's really the exciting stuff. So let's talk about it.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome. The first impressions there. And so just kind of recap that a little bit. What did you walk away from with the city in terms of you already had plans to do stuff with? Of course, you were there not just to promote St. Louis, but of course, what St. Louis was going to get involved with down the road, right?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we were sort of thinking was, okay, we know that we've got NGA coming in, but we want to really attract business. So it's like, how do we figure that out? How do we figure out what matters to businesses and geospatial, what matters to talent? So I think that's really what the key is now, is trying to better understand that ecosystem, like what already exists in places like Virginia and Colorado, Silicon Valley. Like, how can we replicate that in a way that is organic to St. Louis? And so education and economic development and real estate and infrastructure regarding cyber infrastructure, things like that, talent, all those kind of things, and like how do we kind of build it out? And we had plans for a much bigger spread, a much bigger kind of splash in 2020, which of course got derailed. So, but now that Geoint's coming to St. Louis for 2021, the stakes are even higher. So it's a matter of really trying to dial in and understand, like, what does the industry care about? What are they looking for? What do they want out of, especially now that everybody can kind of go virtual in a lot of ways. I know that's not entirely true if you have sensitive mission-driven stuff, but for a lot of places, I mean, we can go wherever now. So what really does drive a company to want to locate in an area? So I think those are the questions that not just St. Louis, but all of us are going to be dealing with now. Like, what does it mean to, where we live and where we work?
Well, let's get right into some of the topics I have lined up. There's a few of them out there. These are just general news items, tidbits. Some of these things are just found over the last week in terms of what I think is interesting for the community as a whole. Some of them are educational resources. Some of them are just interesting news down the road. And as we go along, feel free to pipe up your opinion and see what you think. You call yourself a geospatial novice, but I guarantee some of the things I have to show are more simplistic or interesting than you might give it credit for. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Let me switch screens here. Hold on. So the first thing I found here, I found this Digital Schools Atlas collection. This was a tweet that somebody did recently. Let's see if I can find out who did that. It was, of course, I can't find it. Trying to give him credit. Oh, here we go. Jason Saul. It's at GIS4Schools. That's their Twitter handle. And they posted this. Of course, this is an ArcGIS resource. I don't know how I didn't know about this, but ArcGIS has tons of resources. Or Arc has tons of resources, or Esri, I should say. And this was kind of an interesting thing where they can have just these quick links to some educational globes out here. So here's a couple right here: Digital Schools Atlas in 2D and 3D. We can check that out. I actually I'm a sucker for volcanic activity, so we're just going to open that up and see what that's involved. So,
that's cool.
3D digital atlas for schools showing significant global volcanic eruptions and plate boundaries.
Oh,
so using the atlas, it shows you how you can actually open it up on the side.
It's a really nice user face too. Like, it's nice and clean. It looks like Medium. Like, it's really simplistic to read.
Yeah, UI design for web applications is awesome. So I can actually open up the atlas here. I'm not going to just read their blog. We're going to take it and see what my computer can pull, pushing all this video out there and see what I can do.
Yeah. See where all the volcanoes are.
Yeah.
What's
now
that the volcanoes?
I actually trust this will load up. This is more of a bandwidth issue because I'm doing all kinds of things with the studio at this point. So we'll see if it loads up on the side. I think this is I love that they do this though. While that's loading up, I'll bring it up on see what else is in their library here. Whoops. Here we go.
I do think it's really interesting that, especially if the user face is clean and easy to do, because it does allow for kids and other. I assume that this is sort of, by digital schools, this is geared towards like high school, middle school, elementary. Are they kind of open to everybody?
Oh, this is open. I mean, it's not restricted to anybody. Let's put it that way. Anybody can come in and use this. I'm sure it's designed for younger folks, hoping they will interact with it.
Get excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see how you can play
I would
around
love to
with
get
it.
one of these to open up.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it looks like it's struggling right now. I actually might need to try a different browser and see what happens. Let me see if I can do that real quick. I've actually had some issues with Chrome lately, so I don't know what they're doing to it. Yeah, actually loaded up. Hold on, let me load it up in a different browser. And stand by, everybody.
I think that's part of the really neat aspect of, I'm old enough to have gone to school where data, if you if we wanted to learn something like, volcanic activity, we had to either watch like a video or we had to check it out in a book. And you were very limited into the real-time information on how things interacted. And to me, that's one of the really exciting parts, is that you're not limited to one layer of an ecosystem and trying to understand like what goes on with volcanoes. You can layer it now and see, okay, well, here's what's going on with volcanoes. Now let's look at like CO2 emissions. Let's take a look. Let's track how that looks, and other types of like activity, or maybe there's like thermal warming and spots in the oceans. Let's track that against like volcanic activity. That kind of stuff was just not even a thing that I could have imagined when I was going through like middle school. So to me, that is what's really exciting about stuff like this, is that kids aren't limited to like a X plus X equals Y type of equation of how things work. They can actually look at a much more detailed look at all the interactions. Let's layer it. Let's really take a look at how things interact. And to me, that's going to change completely how they think, like how their critical thinking works. Because that was just something that we didn't have. You didn't have that necessarily like to pull up from that easily.
Oh yeah, how interactive this is. So this is incredible though. And one, it flows very smoothly. So I love how this interface is. And like I said, for some reason I didn't get this to work in Chrome. So if you don't try, I hate to say this, but Microsoft Edge has actually stepped up their game up quite a bit, as well as Firefox. So feel free to try out other browsers, encourage it, and see if something works. This works great in there. It looks like it shows a lot of historical volcanoes, like famous eruptions. Like here we go. Here's the Vesuvius here. So you can get more information on Vesuvius, and you can actually compare it to similar eruptions either nearby or elsewhere in the globe. And you can flip through that specific volcanoes or recorded eruptions as well. So very cool. Very cool application.
I'm not seeing anything on my screen.
Oh, the pop-ups didn't. Yeah, there you go. You cannot see that? Huh. Well, it's showing on the screen share on the broadcast.
So everyone else can enjoy it. Believe you all.
What do you see on yours? I'm kind of curious.
It's a white screen.
Oh, it didn't update on your side. Didn't update. Well, let me flip it back and That's flip fine. It forward.
Hope everybody's enjoying Mount Vesuvius.
Oh, now. Oops. As I'm playing with the... Oh, man. It's struggling. I'm going to mess it up.
It's okay. I'll live vicariously through everybody else.
I'm gonna flip it back and forth and everybody.
Enjoy the volcanoes. But I do agree, like from the bits that I saw previously, it looks beautiful, and it's there we go. Here we go.
Oh, you see that screen share?
Yes.
Well, you shouldn't see that screen share. So let me change it back there. Hold on. For everybody's enjoyment. Studio issues. Sorry, everybody. I don't have my switching browsers is not a friendly thing. Actually, I should just do the entire screen up there.
But I will take this time while you were doing this to talk about something that we're seeing out in St. Louis, but I think is universal, is that if you're within the geospatial industry, you take for granted some of the topics and the words and what this all means. To the general public, it's still very it's not common. There's still a lot of words and understanding of what geospatial is that is still not within like the public's general like understanding. And I think that's one of our big challenges, is like this kind of thing people understand, they can see the applications. How do you help them understand how you get the applications? And yeah. I think that's a big challenge, like working with some other companies or schools that are really trying to like get kids excited about geospatial. You almost have to like reverse engineer their interest. So you have to start with like, here's the application of it. Now, aren't you interested in how you got there? Like, would you like to know more? Because, just trying to teach them from like, they might be interested in space. They might like the idea of imagery. but I think it's really in the applications that really get people excited, especially if they're not from a background where they've seen, like, they understand how the infrastructure comes together. So things like this are really, like, it's imperative. People have to be able to see this kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And just to inspire kids to be able to use it, not just teach them. So how do you get them started to even just use it? So the next actual topic I have goes into this is a this is the Cartography and Geographic Information Society's children's map competition. So this is actually going on right now. So the deadline is April 10th. To meet the April 15th, 2021 deadline, those are the postmark entries due by April 10th. And this is actually a map competition. It's pretty broad. You have several different categories, 4 age categories: under 6 years old, 6 to 8 years old, 9 to 12 years old, and 13 to 15 years old. And entry can be drawn by a single child or multiple children, so up to 3 within the same age category. So you have potential to win this. Very cool. You inspiring kids to draw maps. This year's theme is Map of the Future World. So
Ooh,
just kind of taking
cool.
some excerpts about this to explain what this is and maybe illustrate in any way using pictures, drawings, words, objects, or other graphical elements, but the illustrations must include a map of all or a large portion of the world with recognizable continents, age-appropriate features, and or representations. The map should tell a story or convey a message about the world, in this case, the world of the future. This future may be interpreted as tomorrow, or the world in 50 years, or centuries beyond. So really cool competition going on, and we can actually look at some of last year's stuff just as a preview there. So let me go back and
Wow. I would have been
uh,
I would have all on top of this, like, when I
yeah,
was a
let's
kid.
let's look at 2017's finalists here. Really interesting here. So, and some of them are incredible. Actually, they're all incredible. But check this out. I wish
Oh,
they'd
look at
show the
that.
age categories, but you can see it's kind of they what,
Yeah.
not just the detail, but um, some of them get really intricate in
Beautiful.
terms of how abstract they get.
Yeah.
So check this out. This is pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So sorry, kids. It's not just maybe. Well, I'm not sure you'll win by just drawing an outline. You got to be really creative here, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's the fun of it, though.
Yeah. So this is. I'm not sure what the theme of
Oh, I didn't even
2017
see
was.
the flamingo in there right away. How cute.
Let's see. What's the next one? Uh,
Ooh,
this
that's
must be
pretty.
the. I'm not gonna. I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming this. I'm gonna make an assumption. This is under 6.
I love you. That's so cute.
Let's see. Oh, there you go. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Nice little
neat.
ocean theme there. Oh,
Oh,
that
look
that
at
one's
that.
incredibly detailed. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
that's
Uh,
beautiful. It looks like a cross between an atlas and Settlers of Catan.
it's like a park. Yeah. Settlers of
Yeah,
Catan,
yeah,
turning the world into a massive park.
yeah.
That's really
Oh,
cool.
oh, it's a park. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's neat.
Let's see. What else
With
do we
some
got
nice
here?
Victorian era pavilions in there. That's awesome.
This one's
Oh, that's
pretty interesting. I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking at here, but
she's picking out pieces from a bin and placing them into, like, a puzzle. Looks like
oh, okay. Good
that would
call.
be my interpretation. And she's kind of painting too. It looks like there's a bucket.
Let's check out the next one. What's this going on? Here we go.
Oh,
Okay. That one's a heavily abstract. I have to focus on the eyes there, but still really cool. No. I know I'm being a harsh critic on all these kids.
you're dashing their dreams.
I think I'm signed up to judge a science fair competition sometime this month for a local school. So I don't know.
That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah,
Maybe
I need to bring it down a notch.
yeah, yeah, maybe.
For the record, folks, for those you know, I do have 2 kids. One is 5 and one's 12. So I'm not foreign to children at all. So let's see. Yeah, that's a cool one too. Let's see.
Yeah, that's probably like the under 6 age group.
And that's all of them for the 2017 finalists. So keep in mind, mapping competition is out there. You are welcome to check it out, and still plenty of time to get your submissions out there. The
That's
next
awesome.
topic I have to show. Are you going to put your kids in it? You know, say, hey,
I'm
try
gonna
this
tweet
out.
it out for sure. Yeah, well, one's one's 2.5, so he's probably his it would be like, "Meh, meh." But the 6-year-old, I think I could definitely get her involved in that. I'm gonna see what she wants to do, because I think the idea of like creating some sort of just even getting her excited about maps, I think is really cool. She's got like one of those light up globes that shows the map of the U.S. plus the overlay of the constellations, and I think taking time to go through that and talk about what is a map, and I think she'd be excited about that.
Yeah, very cool. I'm trying to get the 12-year-old and see what she does. So, no, she's 13 now, so she's in the top category. So she's at the bottom of the top tier there. So no pressure on her to raise the stakes and draw something amazing like that park. So next topic I have is back in January, there was a launch of, I can't remember, it was like over 100 satellites. I actually wrote this down at one point, of 100 satellites launched, and one of the 6 of those satellites were SAR satellites. And among those SAR satellites was the launch of QPS. It's a Japanese constellation. They had their first launch, got their first SAR satellite up in the air, and they just released not too long ago. Looks like see, let's say 2 days ago, their first light images. So the first images came off the satellite. So what do those look like per se? So here's a quick flip through some of those satellites.
Wow.
You know, you can't see them in detail here, not yet, but I'll bring up the next page. Actually, this is a really a much closer version of it. So this is actually in San Francisco. But let me go to the actual website here. You can see what's going on. Most of these images look like they're between 1 and 2, well, closer to 2-meter resolution. So they have San Francisco, California here. I shouldn't have clicked on it. It's going to take a while to load up. That was a mistake. It's probably piping it from some server in Japan too.
It's beautiful though.
Yeah, so it's heavily detailed. I can probably download it and zoom in a little bit closer. Yep, I can. Here we go. This is as far as I can get with it. Pretty cool, pretty detailed stuff. Like I said, 2 meters, really good. Let's go back, get a better perspective at some of the others. Let's translate that to English. Yes, I do. So the San Francisco skyscrapers, they zoom in much closer as opposed to the image above it. You can actually get much closer with the image. They shot it at an oblique angle to get this shot, so it's not straight down like a lot of satellite images. You can actually see now with there's a misconception that SAR can. I mean, it's not. Yes, it kind of sees through structures that it doesn't bounce off per se, but SAR admits it's an active sensor, means it sends signals out, and the signals bounce off of certain types of materials, and the measurements off that return is what creates a image. So this is what you're seeing, and it does kind of give an illusion that you're actually seeing into the building. You can't actually see people, you can't see equipment, you can't see all that stuff in there for SAR. So it's not like you can actually see activity in there. You can actually make out the superstructure in some of these skyscrapers, which makes it very, very cool. And you might be able to do some interesting things. But because it's a sensor of measurements, an active sensor of measurements, you can accurately tell the size of objects and create. This is actually, SAR sensors are what you can create really accurate terrain data from, and sometimes even 3D models. Actually, before LiDAR, SAR was often used to do something like that as well.
So what would be the benefit? Most of the imagery that I see is vertical. What would be the benefit of doing oblique shots?
Seeing certain types of activity, measuring certain things that you wouldn't be able to necessarily measure from directly above, seeing the height of things more accurately, giving an example of that. And you might get a different perspective on the returns to identify certain types of objects too. I would say that's probably the best case. The other thing is you can see examples from what Ursa posts on their blog about doing measuring the oil fields to gauge how much supply and demand they have. And I think you can more accurately measure that from a slight oblique angle. You can do that.
Really? Does
So
that have to do with the oil wells, like the height of the oil wells?
no, well, I mean, you think about these giant oil tanks, right? And I can probably zoom in and show an example of
Oh,
that.
the
So
tanks. Okay.
yeah, the tanks themselves, right? So these massive giant, you've remember these massive giant, looks like water. Some people confuse them as
Yeah.
water towers, but these massive tanks that surround the refineries, um, the radar actually does get a return on them, even a slight return, because the oil is a lot different than water. Water actually absorbs radar, but the oil you actually might get an idea of, or at least get a point where you actually can measure where the oil is compared to the height of the tank itself, right?
Really? So you can actually see like the level that
Yeah,
it's at? Dang.
yeah, yeah. And so for measuring global inventories, and if I am off just by a little bit, there's going to be people watching this who are like, "That's not exactly how it is." So like, come on, I'm trying to explain it the best I can here. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be a little off in my explanations.
I
But
won't know.
we have a really cool video to talk about that. That's SAR 101 by Ursa, and I love their blogs. They do go into really good detail about explaining radar to folks who aren't used to seeing it, looking at it. And I'll admit, some of the Compella Space blogs have been really good and educational as well. But we plan on, I'm actually working on transcribing and converting some of those blogs and details, working with them to transform them into more educational videos instead of just reading them on a blog too. So
Yeah,
look
that's
out for
awesome.
that. Might actually be a part of my upcoming series, Journey of Where. Get a plug in there for that. So,
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Because I
but these
mean,
SAR images are pretty incredible for our first light. These are actually all individual cars at a port. These are actually ships right here. This is a ship. This is a ship. And these are all cars probably delivered.
waiting to be sold
Yeah, ships and
or
cars. Yeah, waiting to be sold or transported somewhere. Just moving the inventory around. So very, very cool. First light from QPS, by the way, one of the latest SAR satellites to hit the market. The next topic I have is actually this article that came out by GeoAwesomeness. Yeah, quite the blog right there. They asked a series of industry experts, and you actually might know a few, Courtney, from a previous Geoint Symposium.
yes.
What will disrupt the Geoint? What will disrupt Geoint in the coming years? So the experts weigh in. So the first one was we have Robert Cardillo. He actually weighs in with some of his comments, talking about some of his perspective. And I haven't had time to read this fully, so I'm going to be kind of, I hate to say, paraphrasing per se as we go. So he's talking about there's a lot of real risks in terms of privacy, civil liberties, and misuse of connectivity. However, the purpose of coordination, we are on the cusp of a truly interdependent world in which our individual advancement will be dependent on our collective cooperation. Such a world will advance all of humanity, right? So he's talking about underpinning. Let's see, advancement has been underpinned by the power that emanates from location, understanding, and contextual insight. So progressing movement into overdrive over the next 5 years as geospatial data, underlying data becomes commoditized and globally accessible. So I guess this is another word for it is democratizing data. So everything
Yes,
is
I would
more
think so.
transparent.
It's like that. It's that layer issue, like the contextualizing. That was a better way to describe what I was trying to think of. Is that it's contextualizing information and data, and when you think of things like vaccines or anything. COVID's a good example. The pandemic's an example, but any of these, like, we're always trying to figure out what actually moves the needle. So like I work in communications, we do a lot of stuff with public behavior basically. And you're always trying to figure out what actually moves the needle. And you have surveys, and the problem is they have a lot of biases, there's a lot of things, but like if you can actually watch in real time how these things happen, and you can take and use data to really like contextualize and share that information and figure out really how things are moving. I mean, that's how you can make responses that actually work, not just because somebody like theorizes it's going to work. And to me, that is the biggest part of what we need to be really democratizing data and really paying attention to the movement of things, is because we can actually be effective. as opposed to guessing and trying to change it up as we go along.
Oh, absolutely. So next, it kind of goes similar along those lines. So Chris Tucker, he's been on our show before as well. Actually, I think all these people on this list have at one point or another. Chris Tucker, author of A Planet of 3 Billion, also chairman of the American Geographical Society, which Project Geospatial is partnered with for several activities. He actually talks about developing a 4D framework for understanding the continuous evolving planet and society. And that kind of aligns with understanding the impacts of the human impact on the world itself, especially through his book talking about the ecological and environmental impacts of what we do, I'm sure. But he talks also about accelerating our society to machine speeds across every inch of our 4D planet. So it's both thrilling and its potential for progress and its potential for progress and haunting in its ethical dilemmas. So a lot of hauntingness in that, in terms of, so with transparency, it also comes, there's probably a scary part to how much we truly know about ourselves, right?
Yeah. What do you call that framework? Like the
4D
first part?
framework, 4D. So it's not all about understanding the Earth through layers of information, but also through time. And that time stack of data is becoming ever increasing as we scale up the amount of sensors we have across the globe for looking at different types of things, not just imagery sensors, but signals, and as well as just trying to figure out what types of activity are going on in the ocean, illicit fishing, for example, or pollution from one area to another, water levels, climate change, you name it. So we are ever increasing the amount of data we're getting of understanding just about everything. But combining that all into a single 4D interface or a globe or 4D framework to understand everything, that's impressive, and that is definitely going that direction.
Yeah, incredibly ambitious. So what at the end, you said it was terrifying, like that we actually
Haunting in its ethical dilemma. So haunting is kind of a take it
okay.
down. I mean, terrifying is kind of a next step up, Courtney.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, are you getting scared here? This
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like how the haunting and its ethical dilemma, I think, is the interesting part there, because what is the ethical dilemma, that privacy doesn't actually exist, or that we would actually be accountable to what we do to ourselves,
Yes, absolutely. So
or
I'm
both?
actually
Both are haunting.
you got me reading ahead here because I don't want to be caught off guard just reading everything, right? But Keith Masbach, who is the he's a principal consultant of his own company, Plum Run. He's also the former CEO of USGF, also comments. Really, really interesting take from his perspective. He say that Geoint has been akin to a slow-growing lava dome, which has been building towards a rather forceful eruption. So education, training, experience, competitive forces, and increasing availability of diverse data, along with significant leaps in various enabling technologies, has Geoint poised for explosive growth. And actually, this lines up perfectly for what's about to happen in St. Louis.
Yeah, I think that okay, so let me look back real quick. I did get a knock at the door, so my attention was diverted for a second. This is real time. What are you gonna do? Okay, so is this Christie's point?
No, that was
Oh,
that
okay.
was Keith
Not
Masbach.
Christie's yet. Okay.
He's talking about how geospatial is just building to a point where it's just going to explode in growth. And this is
Yeah.
where, I mean,
Yeah.
this mirrors St. Louis perfectly.
Yeah, and I think again it comes down to that, like that application of how all these different components come together. The industries now realize how integral the question of like where builds into their business model. So it doesn't matter, St. Louis has a strong aspect in ag tech, logistics and advanced manufacturing, defense, and biomedical sciences, all of which have intense geospatial needs, but particularly logistics, advanced manufacturing, and ag tech. And so when you're looking at like how do we, how do you kind of build that up is you get everybody to start asking each other the questions they need in order to like start understanding what technology actually exists out there and how it can be applied to different industries. And I think that's kind of what St. Louis is trying to do. But I think across the world, we're seeing it just from what you've talked about is like people are saying, oh, I didn't even know this data existed. I didn't even know how we can actually utilize this and build this into our business model. But it's happening, and it's going to happen so much faster and so much more because so much of this, like between the data that we're getting from, I pointed up as if like that, I think that's the sky. There's so much data coming down and so many applications to figure out how to layer it. So yeah, I think that's absolutely true. So many companies are interested in it now.
And just to be kind of, I'll do Lynn Schneider's next, but I'd say just reading ahead, she pretty much says the same thing with Keith, but compounded that AI and machine learning will actually heavily contribute to that tremendous expansion and growth of the geospatial intelligence sector. So, but we'll move on straight to Christy Monaco, who's the new vice president of programs for USGIF. She talks about disruption that tends to have a negative connotation to innovation, and disruption equals opportunity in her mind, though. So I don't know if I think that's true or not. I think disruption's always had a positive stereotype, especially when we hear about disruption coming out of things like Silicon Valley, to be honest. But she talks about how there's big Geoint opportunities coming up. Of course, being part of USGF, she's already talking ahead about St. Louis, Missouri, and how NGA West is being built out there by 2025, and how industry, academia, and government around St. Louis is seeking new opportunities to partner. So she's looking at the St. Louis community as the future of Geoint for answering this question of what will disrupt Geoint years to come. So her answer is St. Louis will disrupt Geoint in years to
come. Thank you, Christy.
So I didn't actually plan these articles out this way, but they seem to be lining up perfectly for having.
Yeah. I think the main reason there is, again, it's more about like there's a big emphasis on, startups and smaller companies and products that come in and really shake things up and make us think differently about how you can apply this data. And to me, that's what's really, and you feature a ton of them on Project Geospatial, is just like these companies come in, they have an idea, they completely toss up your idea of what is possible in a larger industry and how it can be applied. And to me, that is like what's so exciting about it. I mean, there's applications now that we don't even, some of the stuff that I've seen on, Project Geospatial could not have even imagined a few years ago. And now it's becoming to the point where like we're building this into our business and civic models. So, I think that is what's disruptive, and hopefully that, it's going to continue that way.
Absolutely. So I have one more topic to bring up for tonight, at least on my hot list here, as we're almost approaching an hour. I don't mind going for longer. And if anybody before midnight decides to hit me up after we get off, I will invite them on, and we're welcome to talk about Geoint as much as you want. So with that said, even though we might end broadcast soon, you're welcome to hit me up on Twitter, and I'm happy to talk with anybody about geospatial topics from 9 to midnight every night. But Friday night for late night Geo is going to be we'll call it planned time. So, with that said, the last thing I have is the new, we'll call it the AZ4, the new iceberg that broke off from the Brunt ice shelf in I believe this is Antarctica, if I'm correct. So this is huge. And they watched this iceberg break off using Airbus imagery. I'm going to say, it's hard to say if that's, I'm going to say it's EO imagery, not SAR for this one. But it's actually impressive because this happened over the course of days, this gap. And I believe I heard when this broke off over Twitter that, let's see if I can, here we go. We can probably get a bunch of different images here. And this is actually coming off of MODIS, this is another imagery by NASA. So you can see that broken up. I believe this, yeah, there you go. 20 times the size of Manhattan. So 490 square miles, how big this thing is. Uh,
Wow.
yep, break it off from Antarctica. Huge, huge, but impressive that we're able to catch it this much off of imagery. Before we had to, the imagery wasn't as consistent, so we catch a series of it over time, but we wouldn't be able to catch the slow break off of the ice. So in recent years, this is I'd say last 10 years, this is pretty significant. So actually, a lot of people don't realize a lot of the SAR satellites monitor in a polar orbit to monitor the ice caps and ice breaking off. And because icebergs are, I mean, they're still a big threat to shipping going across the Atlantic. So uh, uh, traditionally, SAR satellites were used mostly for well, I say mostly, but a good portion of them were used for that reason alone. So.
I think what that's so interesting too is that, again, to take it back to the education next generation kind of thing, is that being able to watch something like that and happen in real time and really capture it is so much more emotionally like strong than just reading about it, but actually watching it happen. As I went up to like Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, and they have markers of where the glacier has retreated over the years. So you start walking up the pathway and you see 1950 and 1960 and 1970. And then finally you get up and you can't even get close to it. You can see it out almost over in the distance. It's almost to the point where you can't access it anymore. And it's very like, it's emotionally strong and moving. And to me, this is the kind of thing that like more people need to see, because they need to see like a real time effect of what's going on around them, as opposed to just like static images. People just don't react the same way to static images as they do to like real time, to see it in real way.
No, people need to see it for themselves. Unfortunately, big, massive global changes are either invisible, it's not in line of sight of everybody, or it happens so gradually over weeks, months, or even years to a point where people don't. They have a hard time conceiving it. That's the most. I think one of the coolest things about looking at things from above, overhead imagery, satellite, and even aerial photography, is that you can actually see these changes from home actually, if you know where to look and where to get the data, and that's probably been one of the significant things looking at imagery over the years for me, is I've actually seen global change. And I don't like to necessarily be political or whatever about this, but to me, things, regardless of what you think about climate change regardless of change on the planet right now is highly active. And I see lake beds drying up, I see ice caps or icebergs melting away. Regardless, the planet is changing, and there's some good documentaries about it. They talk about how humans have a significant impact on that. Sure, but as an imagery observer, as an earth observationalist, I've actually seen the change, and you can almost find it in every part of the world to some extent. And if it's not part of the environment that's changing, you can see the human growth spread across the planet. Another good example is watching the degradation of the rainforest over the last 10 to 20 years has been significant, exponentially significant. Yeah, I remember in the 90s watching shows about this. Like it was still kind of this jungle
Yeah,
adventure.
exotic. It was like an exotic thing to
Exotic,
talk
yeah.
about
You can get lost in
deforestation.
it still.
Yeah.
You had movies
Yeah.
about you can get lost in it, but now it's just like it's shrinking to a part where the Amazon is becoming its own endangered area. So I mean, it already is, but to a point where we're cutting it down. We can realistically see the end of such ecosystems in the next 10, 15, maybe at most 20 years. So,
Well, and I think that's what Chris Tucker was talking about, that whole like 4D framework. I think it really has to be like a storytelling framework. Like
oh yeah,
that's really what it comes down to, is like we can get all the data, we can lay it out, but if we don't tell the stories that people understand, so they start going, "Oh, this matters. This affects me." And I think that's kind of what's lacking a lot of times, is we don't have the ways to tell the universal stories that people see it, because you're seeing it, a lot of people are seeing it, how is it not trickling down into like the places where decisions are made, or to the collective consciousness, I guess. And maybe that's the goal of doing like something like a giant 4D framework that's like as equivalent as like Google Maps on my phone. Maybe it is incredibly haunting to have that sort of access, but maybe we need to be haunted like that. Maybe that's what it's going to take in order to actually propel action.
So let me address this comment real quick on Twitch that we just got from Jack Straw Columbia. The impact comes from the time-lapse ice cap imagery over 20 or 30 years. So I'm not entirely sure if you mean the ice caps as a whole, but this example right here is over the last year, really, in terms of the difference between it slowly breaking off. So in a sense, it's happening very quickly in terms of this specific example. So I guess they're saying they live on the edge of the Amazon and don't see major changes. So this brings up a good point. Like I said, this is why I don't necessarily like bringing this stuff up, because I have to bring up examples to show people what I'm talking about from an Earth observation case. And when I can easily bring up imagery to show the case of the change in a very short period of time over, well, the entire country of Brazil, for example, and the deforestation going on. The other example I like giving is, I didn't actually even realize this, and if you learn more about Lake Mead coming out of Las Vegas, and in terms of how the water contention goes from either California and Nevada, and how basically it's just the states are actually fighting over water for their own local populace and supply. But Lake Mead itself is just significantly going down because the human population is actually using up the water more than the aquifers and the whatever rain runoff is even using it. So there is a significant impact even locally by people around it, and you can see that imagery. I don't have to worry about. I don't have to be concerned about living there. I can just see the change for myself, and it's recorded, right?
Yeah, it's happening in Texas and a lot of the the western states.
But I'm going to thank Jack Straw Columbia for actually commenting there, and I'd love to comment away if you want to showcase something, if you want me to point somewhere. Feel free to comment. I'm like I said, I'm not trying to cause any type of controversies what we talk about. I want to just showcase what kind of I want to just talk about the observations I've made as an Earth observationist or an imagery analyst as I've observed the Earth through, not specifically for things like climate change or environmental. These are things that I've observed as I've looked at it through my experience as an imagery analyst through commercial industry, like for specific human for commercialization, or even governments interacting with governments for military purposes. And just by nature of looking in some areas, I've noticed like, whoa, I've looked at this spot for a couple of years, and what's going on here? This specific town put in this dam, and all of a sudden this lake filled up. But what was the impact further up? And actually, when I looked at that, there was an interesting thing. It was I think it was northern Syria. When I was looking at that area, looking at the refugee camps, and I watched the dam going on up there, being built, or not being built, but there was an existing dam up there where they were worried about it breaking, or if they were going to break the dam to cause disruption downstream. But then I was actually looking at when the dam got built and the disruption of the entire supply of water further up, and how that dam actually allows whatever country that dam has, who owns that dam, to actually disrupt the water supply by countries further down or towns further down. And just by sheerly blocking it, or even drying up the water supply, the next country and next county over, for example. So that
is an interesting point, though, too, is that it could be wherever Jack is living, the policies in place may be protecting part of the Amazon more effectively than other places. And it would be interesting to see, like, what, again, it's that layering. Like, what is it that's, like, if you're seeing deforestation in this area, what's really causing it, versus like, what are the policies and places that are protecting it here? And I think that's part of that storytelling and figuring out like what's really going on here, that this kind of imagery can really get down and dirty about.
He's not disagreeing. He just he sees it there near his home that it's a very slow and mostly caused by deforestation by companies that are not regulated. Yeah, no, it's a good point. They're not. And actually, once again, I'll put an open invite. If you want to come on the show one of these nights, let me know. We'll have you on. You're welcome to discuss it. That'll be great. So, yeah. And every government has their problems for regulating, supporting the populace. But if we don't take care of the environment with as high of a populace that we have, we're going to use up the resources faster than we can. It's a cycle. We're going to use up the resources. It's not sustainable anymore. So, and then what? Then you either have to, then that's how imperialism and things like that become more of a problem, because every country is trying to look after their own people, and that's not good for, it's not good for anybody. So
that's when we head to Mars, right? That's where we
head to Mars. Yeah,
we'll start colonizing other imaginary planets.
You just hedging his bets. That's all. If we can't figure things out here, at least some of us will survive.
Yeah.
But either way, like I said, now I'm off on a tangent and I'm going to get myself in trouble. So with that said, I think we're going to wrap up for this evening. Do you have any final thoughts for us, Courtney? As a guest on Late Night Geo, any final thoughts on what you've showcased for topics over the last week?
I mean, I think that more people should come on and do what I'm doing, which is just talk about nothing. But I think that, like, I think more of the viewers should come on and we're much more knowledgeable than I am, and do the same thing and just kind of talk about it and what they're interested in and what they're passionate about, what they're noticing and paying attention to. Because if I can come on here and I know nothing of this topic, besides being a civic supporter, then I think then Jack and other folks can come on and do it too.
You know more than you give yourself credit for, especially when you kind of hinted at agritech, so
yeah, well, agtech is a whole fun side topic we can talk about some other time.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely a huge component is the geo component to agtech.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on Late Night Geo with us. So this is Courtney Mueller from St. Louis with me, Adam Simmons from Project Geospatial, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everyone.